Thank you. New York State Racing Parimutuel Wagering and Breeding Law, Section 212, which established the New York State Franchise Oversight Board, provides that the board shall consist of 5 members. The presence of 3 members would establish a quorum, allowing the board to undertake action. This meeting of the Franchise Oversight Board is now called to order. Mr. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Franco?
Present.
Mr. Higgins?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Present. Mr. Secretary, please have the record reflect that a quorum of members is present, thus enabling the transaction of business. Before we proceed, a close observer of our just recently completed actions might have noticed that I failed to call for the attendance of Jim Town. It is with regret that I announce that Mr. Town has resigned from the board. Jim has served over a decade with us and was, in my mind, always phenomenally prepared, phenomenally insightful, and provided the most pointed questions and observations. Naira may not agree with that characterization. He will be sorely missed by me and I think by the people of the state of New York whom he served. I'd also like to recognize the participation of our colleagues from the New York Racing Association who have joined us for today's meeting. Dave O'Rourke, the Chief Executive Officer and President, Joy Garner, Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary, Glenn Kozak, Executive Vice President, Operations and Capital Projects, Renee Postal, the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. On the video with us today, Andrew Offerman, Senior Vice President of Racing and Operations, and Robert Serace, here today with us, Director of Capital Projects. Also on the phone, I recognize Michelle Reel from the Office of General Services, who has been a phenomenal assistance to the Franchise Oversight Board for, like Jim, over a decade. And along with us, we have Steve Lowenstein, to my immediate left, who's the Administrative Officer and Secretary, and David Perino, who serves as a counsel to the Franchise Oversight Board. Is there anyone I missed? No. I think we got everyone. Minutes of the board's meeting, last meeting, have been provided to the members in advance. Did members have any edits, corrections, or amendments to that draft?
None.
The minutes then, as circulated, are hereby adopted. Ordinarily, at this point of the agenda, we would discuss the most recent quarterly financial results, but given the forthcoming discussion in the full calendar year of 2025 in the context of NYRA's 2026 operating budget, unless anybody has any specific issues that they want to raise, I think we should dispense any quarterly discussion and move ahead. Is that acceptable to my fellow board members?
Great, yes.
So let's move on to budget reviews and start with the NYRA's 2026 proposed operating budget. Our review authority is specific. Racing Law Section 212A, Romanet 3A, requires that the Franchise Oversight Board to review and make recommendations concerning the annual operating budgets of the franchised corporation. Additionally, Racing Law Section 212.8A, Romanet 3G, requires that the Franchise Oversight Board receive, review, and approve or disapprove capital expense plans submitted annually by the franchised organization. Would NYRA like to start with a general overview of the 2026 proposed operating budget? And as usual, if anybody has any questions, concerns, et cetera, why don't we jump in and address those as we go.
Thanks, Robin. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for having us here. I'd like to thank Mr. Towns for his stewardship. Like, he was very helpful, specifically in Saratoga, as we work on that property. I very much want to thank Governor Hochul for affording us the opportunity to effectuate our vision for modern Belmont. I'd like to thank the local communities where we work and where we live. And, you know, we've gone through a few years now of transitioning, and specifically Saratoga has welcomed us to bring the Belmont up there, and it's helped us get through this period. I'd like to thank the NYRA board for their leadership. 2026 is going to be an exciting year. We're going to open the new Belmont. We're going to begin racing in the fall. We're going to have the third and final Belmont up in Saratoga, and that's been going. It's always exciting and fun. The July 4th Festival and a slightly extended calendar will kind of wrap up this moment in time where we actually stretched out a little bit more in Saratoga, we're going back to the traditional meet after that. Just want to make that point. And then in terms of the project, I'd like to thank specifically Glenn Kozak and the construction team and the trades, the New York trades that have gotten this project. It's being built, I wouldn't say at light speed, but at an impressive schedule. And it's on schedule and on budget. And with that, I'd turn this over to Renee, and we'll start with going through the 2026 numbers. Now, I just want to keep in mind that 26 is a transition year for us. We're front-loading investment going into this building. You're not seeing any of the revenue coming off of the building because we'll have deferred income as we sell suites and sponsorships such as that. So it's a stub year, and there's some noise here, but we'll walk through and answer any.
Yeah, obviously, in the context of when we're discussing that, to the extent that there are one-time, non-reoccurring costs that are associated with that, just flag them so that way we don't go, hey, what's that number?
Nope, definitely will do. And yes, we are forecasting in 2026 a loss of $7 million. That is mainly due to the fact that we're capturing $13 million of new Belmont expenses with, as Dave mentioned, no offsetting revenue until 2027. We are projecting net income from racing in 2027 of $13 million and 2028 of $16 million. So we do have those revenues projected that will be occurring once we're fully operational in the new building. If we want to turn to page 3, we can look at the entire, and we do go deep dive into some of these, but just to give some of the highlights. And the revenue section, you might notice that on-track revenues are down $13 million. That is due to the shift of handle for the high-value players. There was a tax law change where it only allows 90% of deductions of losses against winning. So we are projecting a change from on-track to export revenue for this player, and then that also reduces the rewards rebate. So that's the primary noise in those numbers.
So, again, maybe I'm asking too much on that, but the high-end players are moving somewhere else to avoid that, or is the entirety of their concept of wagering on horse racing changing and they're moving to yet something different? Or is that something that you have no idea?
It's a conservative hedge. There's two headwinds on CAW and then current federal tax. So we're basically hedging some of our higher value players in terms of forecast.
Yeah.
Now, we do see growth, though, in other sectors, so you're seeing it move to export, and that it's not really a one-to-one so much as the sports books with the combined wallets has been, the growth there has been exceptional, for lack of a better term.
So total net wagering revenue is $4.4 million. We do have other revenue of $1.2. And then we also have on-track revenue is a difference variance from last year, from 2025 forecast of $1 million, and that's really capturing some of the investment. It's a revenue share, so investment to open the new Belmont. Labor expenses, the main story, I'll just pick out a few of the items on the
I have some questions when we go into a little bit deeper. I'll hold off and just give you an opportunity to set the table.
Sure. As far as labor expense goes, 6.6 is related to New Belmont, and $4 million is related to CBA and merit increases. In operating supplies, that's $1 million change, and that's all related to New Belmont. Outside services, $1.7 million variance. 1.5 is related to New Belmont. Marketing and advertising, that's 1.5 million and change, and the two primary components of those is 625 related to New Belmont and 500,000 related to Narrabest, New Jersey, and opening there in 2026. And then 2 million in other expenses. There really wasn't anything glaring in that one. It's a number of $400,000, $200,000 changes, but we can go into that deeper when we get to that slide or that page. CUSA remains the same, and Cornell we made a Cornell donation in 2025 that we don't have projected in 2026. Do I move to the new, to the budget agenda?
Sure.
All right, so page 4, it does have some changes. So we do, when we did the budget, it was based on 190 race days with 4 cancellations. Since then, NYSA and NYRA have come to an agreement where we're going to try to get to 196 race days and make up cancellations when possible. So
And
that's
you've done a 2-year, calendar? How set is that 2-year calendar?
Quite. I mean,
Okay.
Andrew could give details on it, but in terms of race dates, definitive.
And conceptually, that's to help the certainty for individuals that are planning and trying to figure out what they're doing with their strings, their barns, et cetera?
Twofold, it's good for the horsemen for those exact reasons, and for our racing staff to plan out. As we transition to a winter meet on the synthetic, there's some evolution going on.
Okay.
The only thing that I would add to that is that the 2027 specific dates are still something that we're working through with our horsemen. So we plan to have that done over the course of the summer relative to
Okay,
that.
just the number set, the actual day-to-days are still fluid.
That's correct.
Great.
So that does change the handle projections. We do have an additional $50 million in handles, which impacts, the revenue impact is 2.8, expense impact is 1.6, for a net impact of 1.25. If we look at page 5, this is the breakout of the ADW and the other handle. And so just again to call attention, there is a shift in the ADW national account holders from 82 million. Again, that's the high value player, shifting down to the ADW CAW line. And that's, again, that change is then offset as well by increase of handle for opening New Belmont.
Yeah, so, you know, we've spoken here at Franchise Oversight Board meetings a couple of times about computer-assisted wagering, and I obviously, along with everyone else, I read about your comments at the Global Symposium on Racing in December, and NYRA making some changes. My recollection in your comments was you anticipated that the implementation of that would be no later than January.
Mm-hmm.
But you were hopeful to have that done. I really have a couple of different questions. The first is, if that is in effect, have you seen any impacts, any consideration, anybody complaining, et cetera? And the second is, do you have any concerns with other platforms? I mean, NYRA's taking a lead on that from an ADW platform sense, and if other platforms are you know, offering different activity into their pools, not NYRA obviously, are you concerned about that, or is, you know, what was the decision-making behind that led to your announcement in December?
Sure. I'll start with the timing. To implement I'm calling them guardrails, but really it's throughput, and there's some industry plumbing that needs to be effectuated for that. And right now, it looks like last week of January, first week of February, we'll get a definitive timeline from Elite on that, and then we'll alert everyone. I anticipate that in the next week or so. In terms of what we're doing is, CAW play is nothing new. It's basically people using computer algorithms to wager on bets. And pari-mutuel is a very interesting and old form of wagering that the odds aren't definitive until every bet's taken and the pool's closed. And as we've seen it in a lot of different factors in life, as compute increases, intelligence increases, and unfortunately for pari-mutuel wagering, volatility increases right at the end. And what it was really doing was kind of reducing the quality of the product and the perception of the retail player, for lack of a better way of putting it. So our real objective is to reduce volatility, to smooth that out. So what we've done is, what we're doing is putting in volume caps, essentially when the clock hits 1 minute to post, and that's technically 2 minutes to off. Usually it's a little bit longer though. And CAW has traditionally been classified in simulcast agreements as 6 bets per second, anything above that. So what we've decided is to leverage that, throttle down all play, everyone, once the clock hits 1 minute to post. We're working with the TRPB, which is the industry watchdog for wagering, to create a volatility metric. It's really how much are these odds moving in these last 2 minutes. And that's gonna become our gauge and what we're going to attempt to reduce. This is phase one. I anticipate this is gonna evolve as we go through, and this was adopted or based upon due diligence that we've done across different industries, whether it be the Hong Kong, it could be France or Japan. Like, we're not unique in dealing with CAW play, it's international. It's an international game. That's one piece of it. The other part would be the odds feed. You know, in this discourse you were hearing over the last, or you might have heard over the last 6 months, there's different odds that information, there's one odds feed coming out of the tote, and what we're essentially gonna do, in at least one place, if not multiple, just make that odds feed available to the public. I think it actually has potential, really, to feed into new generation of where we're looking at parimutuel betting. Like, so as part of this, our strategy is to make more information available, more tools available, develop tools ourselves, in effect, using AI or machine learning to help the retail player and change the way the product looks and feels to somebody coming to the track. This product, this wagering product, has not changed in generations. When you get down to it, I think there's a big opportunity for the way that we kind of look at how we produce and offer our gambling content. So I think this is the beginning of a very interesting journey, really, for the sport. Sometimes it takes an inflection point, and I think the inflection point was definitely met this year in terms of the feedback that we were getting from our core retail players.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we at the Gaming Commission, with my full-time job, frequently get complaints about late odds changes, and everybody presumes it being nefarious. People are allowed to see the break, figure out something, and then make wagers, which we're always in a position of trying to explain how that's not occurring.
It's, put it simply, it's annoying. And 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, we actually curbed it in the win pool.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had several other pools that we introduced, like the late pick 5, which hadn't existed. They were never in that pool, and we could use that as a proxy to measure what the impact would be on the final payout in the pick 5, for instance. And then in the win pool, what we were doing there effectively is stopping the odds from changing once the gates opened. But that's a little bit of window dressing when you really get down to it. Really, when you get down to it, it's about the volatility in those last couple of cycles of the tote. And so now we're really getting to the core of the problem.
Any concerns with other ADW platforms or you know, as NYRA is a provider of content not doing something like that?
Well, the reason that we focused on the 6-second rule was that's pretty much contractual in most contracts across the industry. Not globally, but the majority of the larger ones. So we feel good that everyone's going to comply with that because it's been the rules for quite a long time. This is something you have to do. And we're taking steps. That's why we're trying to work our way into this. But I don't think there's really any way not to do this if parimutuel betting is going to evolve and compete in today's landscape. So there are a few conservative notes that we mentioned earlier in terms of like larger players. That might not come to fruition and we might beat these numbers. But either which way, this is going to evolve and we're going to keep massaging how we're approaching it.
Okay. Thank you. We didn't rehearse that.
No, I've been talking about this for 6 months, so.
Like I asked one question and Dave goes on a soliloquy, but that wasn't rehearsed. Thank you. I'm sorry, Brene.
All right, no problem at all. All right, page 9, we get into the budgeted operating expenses. So again, the main highlight here is the labor expense.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to take an opportunity to ask 2 questions, and as I usually do, I back you up again after I tell you to go ahead. Okay. There's some discussion on key highlights on pages 5 and 6. And 2 things kind of jump out to me. The first is I got a couple of questions about field size, but more importantly, June 28th, 2026 is the end of Aqueduct, at least live racing at Aqueduct. Are you doing anything to promote the end of racing at Aqueduct? It's been there for over 100 years. It's kind of a dramatic point of an accepted closure of a thoroughbred racetrack and not a forced closure of a thoroughbred racetrack. And obviously, one of the things that's kind of charming about horse racing is the longitudinal experience that players have.
Mhm.
In other words, I remember the first time I went to Aqueduct.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to be able to go there again to watch horse racing. What are you doing relative, or are you doing anything relative to, hey, this is your last chance to see what your great-grandfather used to look at and come here?
I'd say it's twofold. One would be on our TV coverage leading into the, I believe it's June 28th, final day.
Yeah.
And then on the final day, there will be a party. For sure, it will be a party. And in terms of Aqueduct, it has a very, very unique character. And a lot of people that I've met in this industry and some of the most successful owners in this industry grew up going to Aqueduct with their father, their grandfather. So I kind of refer to Aqueduct as the players' track. And a lot of people, a lot of young guys learn math there, like in terms of, and are exceptionally good at it. So there will be. We're not announcing anything yet because we're still like planning on the exact themes of it, but
You're not letting it pass without some
no chance.
official.
Yeah, no
All
chance.
55 people will be very excited about it.
No, there's gonna be a lot of people there. Like I tell you,
Sure there will.
yeah, you really want to think about what's the character of the party, and then there's a very core fan base there. A lot of Aqueduct's core fan base is West Indian, like in a lot of ways. We sponsor a race in Jamaica, the Mutet Mile, and I tell you one thing that's amazing. I went down there this year with Andy Sterling because we put that on Fox, and we're walking through the airport, and you would think he was a rock star. So we're definitely going to have something for the finale, and as well as when we open Belmont in the fall. And you know, I would like to make the point, and when Belmont opens in the fall, the first 2 floors will be open. The grounds will be open. There will be a preview party, for lack of a better term. But we'll be working our way into full utilization of the building for the wood.
Okay. But we'll talk about that. And the other thing that in the discussion of each of the different meets, there's indication of field size. You know, it's something that obviously without the horses, it makes it kind of difficult to run. I saw that you have a 7-race card for the first time in a number of years that kind of put a little bit of a focus on it. And one of the things that we hear all the time is the cost of business and the expense of doing business in New York. For the longest time, it was the insurance that the horsemen were paying, and I know that there's been substantial work by the Jockey Injury Compensation Fund and in that regard, and markedly lowered that over the last decade. And I know that you have a couple of different items of trying to increase interest in New York and convincing horsemen and owners that New York's the place to be. Obviously, that has a potential effect on the horse population and what you're doing on a field size. This might not be the right time to talk about it, but sometime today, I think we'd all be interested in hearing what are you doing to try to promote that aspect of New York really isn't what you know, too expensive to operate, and it's the right place to be.
Yeah, you know what, Andrew's on, and he's been working quite a bit, and there's several different factors. One, in terms of field size, you know, 7-race card in the United States seems small. If you're in Europe, that's a full card.
Well, I remember when I was growing up, 9 races is a big race day.
Yeah, so
But I'm old.
we've come to an agreement for a 2-year schedule, roughly 200 race dates. We were public about our opinion in terms of bringing the race calendar down slightly. This is a seasonal sport. It really is, especially when you're in the Northeast. We are pivoting to synthetic track, so this calculus is going to change completely after this year. And the thought and the strategy really is to recruit horses coming out of Woodbine and some of these other jurisdictions. And I would also like to note, if you look at NYRA, our circuit over the last 20 years, you're going to see a massive increase of the ratio of turf racing. And there's a synergy between turf racing and the synthetic in terms of their adaptability to it. If you look at the New York bred population and the desire to be on the turf courses, that coincides as well, or correlates. So, so that's really one of our like fundamental strategies in terms of field size, because historically the winter has always been the most challenging time. One of the things as well in that calculus is the 7 races on Thursday. Thursdays, you know, we're in the modern times, and it's Thursday during the week, during the day. Our strategy was trying to move those races onto the weekend because the return on those races are in some cases 2 to 1, and that helps feed back into the purse account. Long story short, we're happy to have a 2-year agreement, and that gives us stability and planning. In terms of some of the incentives and other programs, I'll let Andrew get into it, and Glenn might want to talk about the housing strategy as well, which correlates with this. But in terms of the television coverage, we maintain television coverage year-round just to keep eyeballs on us and the consistency. And while we're in the winter, we partner with Oak Lawn, which allows us, because that's one of the premier meets during this time of year. So on the media, that side of it, that's been our focus and our strategy. There is a macro component to this. If you look at how many horses are actually foaled in the United States, if you go back to the beginning of our franchise in 2008, that number is roughly half that now. So there's more competition for horses. And when you're competing for horses, there's different aspects of the cost of doing business. When you get down to, let's just go to purses, and that's really the top line revenue driver going into the equation. When you're competing across an entire year, you start looking at, well, when do you have the best chance to win? And when do you have the most leverage? And for us, that's usually when the turf tracks are available. It's the Belmont Saratoga brand, or Strong, specifically Saratoga. In the winter, we're competing with, I could use Oak Lawn as an example. That's a very specific circuit. There's a casino on that property. They run literally in the middle of the winter, and they're putting a lot of purse money at it. Now, we are competitive in our purses. We are not the highest in the winter. But if you're just going to chase that, I don't think you could win that game. Now, you might change the game by putting in a synthetic track, and that's really where we're kind of pivoting to when you talk about the economics at the macro level. Andrew, you want to talk about some specific things that we're doing in terms of helping on the cost structure side?
We can talk about various incentive programs that have been in place. The short version of the story is that we've tried a lot of different incentives, and I think that they have been a little bit watered down in their messaging. So our objective with a 2-year agreement is to refocus our efforts on newer incentive programs that can deliver a stronger message, both for the people that remain stable in New York throughout the course of the year, as well as attracting, as Dave said, whether it be through regional competition or through the fact that a synthetic racing surface will allow us to host more horses that may be looking for turf surfaces during a month where turf racing hasn't historically been available. Specific to programs that are currently in place, I think the Jockey Injury Compensation Fund was talked about. NYRA and NYTHA have worked at length to make sure that that program is more affordable by providing the first 12 stalls for all trainers across the entirety of the year for free. Additionally, there's a bonus credit that's paid out January through March for anybody running fourth through last that provides funds for those trainers specifically to reimburse their injury fund expenses. That program's been in place for 7 or 8 years, and I think done a very good job of helping reduce overall insurance costs in conjunction with some of the other changes that have been made to the insurance program. NYRA specifically has also hosted a couple of different versions of a winter loyalty program. It first took more of the form of a competition, and more recently has been modified to try to assist smaller businesses. So there's 2 different groups: trainers that have between 1 and 10, or trainers that have between 11 and 20 stalls. Those 2 groups divide up a little over $100,000 based on their participation, again, using those expenses to offset some of their winter costs of doing business within the state of New York. There's several other smaller programs that are in place that we've agreed with NYTHA and with the NYRA Racing Committee to help offset expenses in the event of race day cancellations, in the event of no contest races, or other things like that, that help compensate people for horses that had been prepared to race but weren't able to participate due to something outside of their control. And as mentioned, the focal point now that there's a 2-year agreement in place is working on other things to not only reduce expenses, whether that be potentially programs within the stable area, but also to look at ways to attract more people to the state of New York to conduct racing and participate at New Belmont, specific to the synthetic surface that'll be in place, or to use Saratoga to attract new businesses to the region and hopefully keep them here for longer periods of time.
I would also point, in terms of from the working population, the backstretch and the quality of life here in New York, I think New York should be applauded for the fact that at each of our facilities, there's 1,000 dorm rooms. I think that's more than the rest of the country combined, possibly. There's childcare available through the BCCA, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that Bess does in terms of managing the healthcare clinics and even dental. I think in terms of that, and then Glenn, you might want to speak about the new housing that's going up.
Sure. So one of the proposals is for a 15-unit assistant trainers dorm. That's one of the feedback that we've received from NYPA, that in order to come in from out of town or to bring in the area that we're in, specifically in Nassau County, for the cost of having a assistant trainer there, if we're able to provide an efficiency at the track. So that's one of the things that we're proposing for the 2026 budget that we have plans drawn up, set into OGS as well right now.
What kind of a commitment do you need from the trainer that, for their assistant trainer to utilize?
And that's one.
Or were you kind of speculating on?
We're speculating on that, and one of the things, and I'll let Andrew speak on that, but just somebody that is here for year-round use, or that, again, has the number of stalls and a number of starts to be able to correlate to having that.
Have you seen any programs like that? And I mean, obviously, it's different in a rural community, but there's a couple of racetracks that are in urban locations.
Not
Unique is.
Not on track. I've seen incentive programs that are trying to, California, to bring trainers in, Ship and then Win, I think it's branded, but not in the United States.
Okay.
And, you know, a big part of the strategy here is to, since we're going to the synthetic track, this is the opportunity now to bring in some new outfits. But Andrew, you have anything to add on that one, or?
No, other than the point that you made that really haven't seen something comparable to this in North America. Internationally, potentially.
One other item was the capital investment that was made for the horse equisizers over the last 3 years. So there's 7 machines that are in place that are the trainers use to be able to modify their operation with equipment and do it a little bit more reasonable.
That walks the horses in.
It's $1 million investment that was made in the backstretch. So it's kind of like a treadmill for a horse, just that they're able to.
It helps reduce some labor expenses. I
Yeah,
imagine.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Where did anyone refer to? I don't remember.
We're moving on to operating expenses, unless anybody has anything on revenue. All right. So again, as I discussed previously, the biggest change is labor. Roughly $4 million in just regular CBA and merit increases, and $6 million in increased costs for, and that's really the build out of some of our events team, hospitality, sponsorship, you know, now that we'll be in a building for 10 months and be able to hopefully host large events in the future once we're fully operational.
This is usually where I ask Joy, how's labor going? How many agreements are there that are expired, not being negotiated, but expired?
It's completely expired, and we're setting up, I think we have about 4 that we're still in the middle of negotiating, setting dates. Not where we have not started negotiating, but we're setting dates for negotiations.
That seems to be low over from previous comparatives.
Out of 26.
Yeah.
We've gotten, the team is built out this year. We were short of labor lawyer for about a year.
I remember. Okay. Thanks.
All right, and then, you know, we've highlighted here where some of these, where the larger expenses are, or variances. Operating supplies, again, that is primarily related to New Belmont, small wares, new uniforms, saddle cloths, et cetera. Outside services, opening the new building where, you know, utilizing some consulting services and outside services to get up to speed. Sponsorship commissions, new cost to operate NYRA Bets in New Jersey. Marketing and advertising, again, this about $1.5 million in increase, and $600,000 is related to New Belmont, $500,000 is related to New Jersey. And other expenses. So other expenses, we've been trying to reduce these buckets, but I mean, unfortunately, some of these just aren't large enough to call out on their own. There's a $2 million variance. The three main components of that is $400,000 for Saratoga per diem. We're up there for an additional week. $400,000 for training and education as we bring in new employees, and we're moving towards a new culture and experience related to New Belmont. And $400,000 just licensing and permits for software. We did have some costs move from CapEx to OpEx as we're moving to a one-year renewal to identify new opportunities to move into different.
And just to call that out for some of my fellow board members, you'll see numbers 2 and 3 that Renee was just referencing in the monthly reports that we get. Very frequently, it'll be the exception out on the software, for instance, and I know there were several of them that were related to
Right.
some sole source or single source exceptions for individuals on the employee culture training.
Yes, definitely. Some of the other expenses in there, just so you know what's in there, the bank and credit card fees, Saratoga per diem, that's about $6 million. $4 million is Saratoga, 4.2 is Saratoga per diem, and licenses and permits of $3 million. Those are the three major items in that bucket. All right, when we get into adjustments, we have the HISA fees. Those are relatively flat to 2025 forecast, and we had the Cornell donation that we mentioned earlier.
What are they doing with the money at Cornell, you know?
Imaging equipment is what they.
I do.
Yeah, there's a program that was in the budget last year, as Victor's nodding, going, yep, I remember this, that is to direct a new imaging study using some advanced imaging equipment, and then also trying to create a couple of different medical studies and analysis to try to reduce fetlock injuries at horses that are training or racing at NYRA. It's being done through Cornell University's College of Veterinary Medicine's Cornell Ruffian program. That's where the equipment is going to be. The program starts up, I think, in earnest. They've started some elements, but in earnest in August, I think, this year. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I have some additional information on that if you're truly interested in it. It's a program that we're pretty enthused. It's building off of a variety of different understandings that have occurred in Australia, Hong Kong, and Europe, and trying to build upon some of that, mostly using new technologies to see if we can identify issues early before they become catastrophic. It's headed by John
Piggott.
Thank you. John Piggott, who is the head of the Cornell Ruffian School, or facility.
Yeah, the Ruffian Clinic across the street from Belmont's impressive, and it's gonna be even more so with this new equipment.
Yeah.
And then we get to, if everybody's okay on the expenses, we'll move on to the non-operating expenses on page 11. So there's a large.
Just a quick question,
Oh, sure.
on this page. What changed to allow NYRA Vets to operate in New Jersey, and was that effective January 1, or was that effective?
I wish it was effective 18 months ago.
I was wondering why.
So New Jersey has a very specific ADW regulation. Essentially, there's one operator. Traditionally, that operator was 4 NJ Vets. It was run by TVG or Fanville. So we bid on that. They basically have an open sort of bid process. We had won that, and effectively, we're taking a different approach though to the market. And so there are some nuanced changes. Rather than just one operator in New Jersey, we basically pitched the concept of NYRA Vets moving into Jersey, then subbing out to each of the sports books in New Jersey, so they can have that single wallet. That's one of the bigger sports betting states behind New York. So a lot of intricacies going into that, so it's taken quite a while to actually get ready to go. other things where the tote had to be located there, we're on a different tote. So this has been a little while coming, for lack of a better term.
Are revenues from that projected for 2026 or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
1.2 million. All right, so for non-operating, there are three major swings, going from 7.8 million in 2025 to 20.7 million. The main one is the retiree expense and slash benefits. So we had a benefit in 2025. 4.1 million of that benefit was related to changes made to the few plans in 2023 that for accounting purposes were recognized. There's some that are recognized immediately and some that are recognized over the next 2 years. That's 4.1 of the 6.8. And the other 2.7 is really just actuarial changes. We base our forecast on actuarial forecast. We usually do, they give us a range of 90 to 110%. We did go right in the middle this year to where we believe they'll shake out based on their advice. So that's the main difference for retiree expense slash benefits of 6.8. We have additional 4.9 million in interest expense, and that is all primarily related to the Belmont redevelopment. We expect to be fully drawn down by the end of this year, so we have related interest expense to that of 8.2 million. In 2027 will be up to 8.7. And interest income will decrease as well of 1.7 million, and that's just the fact that we're spending down the money, and interest rate changes as well. We use the Treasury Yield Fund to project our interest rates. That's what we base it on. But as we spend down the cash from Belmont redevelopment, and will be, that's really the primary change at the 1.7. So those are the three main components of the swing. Any questions on that? And the rest are just, different appendix items, so that concludes the presentation of the operating budget.
I do have a question on 13, if you could just, if you don't mind. On the farm, this is something that we get the occasional complaints on, and I thought we could utilize this as kind of an opportunity to publicly vet that out and give you an opportunity to talk about the chatter. But if you could just detail of what you have at the farm, what your projected use is. But the complaints that we get is that NYRA is now in competition with other farms that are in that particular location. It's driving down day stalls, rates, et cetera, which I know was never the intended concept of this, but it's some chatter that I've picked up. I was wondering if you could address a little bit about what is the utilization of the farm, what's the intention, and what's not the intention.
Well, primarily is to maintain green space. Sugar Maple Farm is a signature farm in New York in terms of the breeding industry. It was down to about 30 mares, I believe, when we acquired the farm, and now it's up to 80-something?
83.
It's essentially full. It was to preserve that green space, preserve those stalls, and in terms of the breeding industry, it's really a tool. So we have the ability to leverage with the breeding community.
If I can just, again,
Sure.
Because I'm, again, the chatter that I hear. So you have 80 mares that are there. How do you set your rates for that? Is it a market rate?
Oh, yeah, it's a market rate.
So that way you're not undercutting somebody
No.
that might be 7 miles away.
We might be the most expensive I'm not positive on that, but we're definitely not undercutting rates, that's for sure. It's
So there's no subsidization relative to utilization on it?
Not at all. It's a beautiful farm. The amount of capital that was put into it in the 80s was probably phenomenal. We've restored the fencing, some of the barns. We've tightened it up. It's a showcase in some form in that sense. Those mares that are there, I don't know if they would be in New York if that farm was not there. Many of them are incremental, I would say, to the equation here, and that's the strategy. I spoke earlier. I said, listen, the fall crops roughly half of what it is in 2008. The best thing that we can do for the racing industry in New York is grow our own. And this is us investing in the breeding industry itself. And our intent in our conversations with the breeders in the state is, how do we help now and how do we grow this? It was originally a stallion farm. We have no intention of bringing our own stallion into that farm, but we would definitely, and we are engaging in conversations on how can we participate cooperatively with the other stallion owners in the state to maybe invest. And if we have a New York bred runner, that is one of the most valuable things that we can have in our circuit, because they're going to stay in New York and they're going to run in New York. And if we can improve the quality of the New York bred and participate in that endeavor, I think that is one of the fundamental things on how we can compete as a racing jurisdiction as we go forward.
The educational component of what the breeding means is something else that we're gonna undertake as well.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of,
So you're gonna be using that as an example for people and getting interested, involved, et cetera?
And if we're able to tie in with Cornell as well, with
Yeah.
the veterinary students, to be able to have something with that type of repro work that's up there with the amount of foals, and then, let's face it, that's 50 new New York bred foals that are now in the state. And we heard that directly, that there were horses that shipped in because of what the property was that would not have foaled in New York.
Okay, that begs the next question, which again, from chatter, how do people become aware of availability? How did you recruit for that? Whose mares are they?
And again, yeah, I don't.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we get Dan in here, the farm manager.
The farm manager.
Yeah.
It's literally a small esoteric, but I have gotten several phone calls over the past year relative to what's going on and why is NYRA operating a
The
farm. So I
absolute
figured I'd take
strategy,
the
this is for it to be incremental to the New York racing scene. Like,
Okay.
that is our goal. That's our mission, is a
And
fundamental
also
mission.
the layup component as well.
Oh,
for
that's a good
we
point.
had horses that have, gone through surgery and needed some, care afterwards, and this is one of the components of it for the aftercare as well that's taken place.
There's a few
at that
horses
facility.
on the track that we sponsored for, go ahead.
Yeah, we sponsored surgery for a few horses that the, owners or trainers did not want to put the money up for the horse in order to save the horses.
I think I've seen a couple of those.
And so NYRA stepped up and we were able, and they're pasture sound, they're living happy, healthy lives up there, and that's one of the things that, you know.
Yeah, and these type of surgeries are, relatively new. And the more that they're performed locally, the higher the, recovery, like, the higher the percentage that it's gonna be a positive recovery. So, that's also a component of what we're using that farm for.
I think a related question to the chairman's, how many different owners have mares there?
A lot. I mean, I could circle back on that, but yeah, there's several. It's not as dominated by one in any
That's
form or
what I-
fashion. Usually it's 3 or 4 per person.
Anyway, like I said, it just seemed to be an opportune time to raise that.
Yep.
Thanks.
So that concludes my presentation, unless there's any additional questions.
Anyone else have any questions relative to this? If not, why don't we move on to NYRA's 2026 proposed capital budget? I'd like to try to the extent that we may be able to, is bifurcate the discussion between the 2025-26 capital plan and the Belmont redevelopment project, which I have as a single line item on the agenda later. So why don't we start with the capital budget?
Sure. You want to go
The capital plan, excuse me.
So the capital plan that we have set up for 26, 27, as we presented in the past, is to get the 2-year rolling plan to be able to set up for permitting and also for construction based on the operations of each of now the 2 facilities. The larger components that we're looking at are at Belmont for a quarantine barn, for 2 barns that we'll be setting up for use year-round, but then also specifically for Breeders' Cup, where we see that there'll be a demand for isolation for that event. So we're currently in the process of remediating barn 8 right now, and in that location.
At a very high level, what's the differences that you need for a Breeders' Cup or, barn?
So,
Just so, out of a normal.
Sure. And so again, a secured area that's fenced in, insect-proofed, non-porous flooring, be able to sanitize the location, direct access to the track that can be monitored. We will put in video surveillance as well as part of this. The manure pickup has to be, for a certain period of time, differentiated from the normal process of the rest of the facility. And what we're trying to do is establish these barns that could be used, as I mentioned earlier, not only for that Breeders' Cup time period, but also for some of the outfits that we're hoping to be able to get in for that synthetic season. So, and right-size the barns to be able to incorporate the different plane loads of horses that could come in for Breeders' Cup for.
Are those rules outlined in sort of an international?
It's all USDA. So it's all USDA.
Wow.
So we currently are we have a USDA quarantine barn as a temporary facility. So part of this capital plan will be to make that a permanent facility that Andrew and myself have been working with the USDA on to go through and get the specifics. We've had numerous calls with them, have outlined the SOPs that are required for this because of the site of Belmont. And again, with the ARC being at JFK, only 8 miles away, why are we contemplating putting this barn in place? For us, it's the convenience of having the horses being able to ship onto the property, having the time periods where their grooms or trainers can access them in a surrounding that they're going to be accustomed to for training and racing. And then after the quarantine, there's an isolation period as well. So depending on when the horses would ship back, that would dictate what type of quarantine they would be in. And this is something similar to what we have up at Saratoga, where we have the 3 isolation or temporary quarantine facilities up there. And what we're really looking at is with the Stars and Stripes, this could be used numerous times out of the year. We're certainly not getting into the quarantine business, but for our key marquee days to be able to entice foreign horses, this will be a strategic part of it. With the discussions that we've had with Breeders' Cup, there's a ton of interest for the new Belmont. With the size of the turf courses and the time of year that we're operating, you know, with it's more of a European style course with a larger radius as the bigger courses.
I would just add one thing to that, Glenn, that the benefit of the permanent facility for people that might be interested in Saratoga is that they could ship to Belmont, train at Belmont, and ship up while following USDA procedures to run at Saratoga, which could be very appealing to people that find getting to Saratoga from Europe more difficult.
The convenient investment, because it fits the Breeders' Cup, it also fits the strategy. We're recruiting internationally, not just the U.S.
And you know, again, talking to my fellow board members, so you see some of the transportation in the monthly reports as exceptions because you're bringing horses in from Europe and
Right.
they want to be able to hold those horses and handle those horses in a particular manner.
That's exactly right.
That might be an opportune time, Glenn, if you want to walk us through just how the rollout is going relative to the synthetic and when you expect you know, horses to actually start experiencing that, as well as the turf and the main course as well. Just kind of an overview of just how's that developing. And I see you have a couple of different miscellaneous upgrades, et cetera, to the extent they may correspond into the capital plan. Feel free to.
Sure. So we'll start with the synthetic. The synthetic is complete in place. Horse tunnel is complete with the synthetic on it. And one of the things that we're dealing with right now is we've had 2 meetings with the horsemen that we've given tours of the construction of the actual track to go through how it will operate, how they will gain access, what our training will be. And speaking with, we had, I believe it was 42 or 44 individuals that came on the first tour to go through to see everything that was in place. And one of the things that we're working on right now is there's still a significant construction project taking place in the infield. So the infield video board is now in place, but leading up to that was the concrete, the structural steel, the crane that was directly adjacent to the inside rail of the synthetic track.
In Mount Naira.
And that is the base of the main track. What Mr. Williams had just referred to is the clay base for the main track is in the infield. It's screened, it's ready to go. Now we're waiting for the weather this spring to be able to install that, have the temperatures to be able to get that thing down, and roll in the compaction that's required. So that'll take place sometime in March, early April. But with the synthetic, we're relocating, now that we've got the roadways in, the flood mitigation with all the drainage and dry wells installed, we're able to start spreading topsoil out in the infield right now. Once the piles are down in the infield, we'll be able to see across the track, and that was the biggest concern, because we could train we're able to put horses on the track for galloping and jogging right now, but in order to have the outriders and the exercise riders, if they need help, visually there's impairments across the track. I mean, still have 30,000 yards of material for the base of the track. We've got probably close to 30 to 35,000 yards of topsoil for the infield that needs to get spread. So that's what we're currently working on. And I'd look to say that we're probably in sometime mid to late February to be able to get horses on the track where it's safe for, both exercise riders and for the horses, and for monitoring it. We've had that communication with the trainers, and their feedback has been, let's get this right and make sure that all parties, have the proper both EMT coverage, the outriders are comfortable with this, and we have everything in place. So it gives us the opportunity to continue to push some of the construction components that we'd have to work around, some of the start times, with training taking place from 5:30 to whatever time we designate. So we will continue to work with NYSA and the horsemen as far as the video board installation, and we're currently working 6 to 7 days a week on the infield as far as with what we're responsible for moving that material around. So it's coming together very, very quickly. Leading on to the 2 turf courses, they've been down since, the one course was down since July, the other course was down in October. Full irrigation is installed, all the rails are installed. We currently have 3/4 of both turf courses blanketed and covered, similar to what we do at Aqueduct. And then the main track, everything, the sub-base is down, meaning the stone dust is set to grade. Inside rail, outside rail are all complete. We're currently in the process now of just putting up marker poles on the inside. And as I mentioned earlier, the clay pad will go on when we're able to in March. And we will coordinate that with the construction team on when we're able to get that course open. So we'd like to get that open sometime late April. And again, I'll work with Andrew on timing on that, but just to get the horsemen that are coming back from Florida the ability to get on the main track, and then we'll coordinate with the construction team, whether it is modified training hours or what we, need in place. The synthetic harrow yard building is complete. The outrider stands are complete, and we're currently, I think, the end of February, we're expecting all the light poles in for it. So there will be training lighting on the synthetic as well. So that's just another element that we have to modify our hours for operation on that till we get that in place.
Long story short, we'll be on the synthetic once he levels Mount Kozak.
Mount Kozak. Okay. Unless you have a narrative you want, there's a couple of items on the Exhibit B that I just want to kind of focus on. First being the expense on backyard landscaping is behind the breeder's barn is the most significant expense, and I was just wondering if you could give us a little flavor as to what that's entailing.
Sure. So currently the area that we're looking at is what we refer to as the backyard behind the saddling sheds, and we're looking at, now that we've got a brand new state-of-the-art facility, is increasing that experience going in there. So modifying the paths that are going in there, having that work in conjunction with the architecture of the new building, updating Wi-Fi back there, adding concessions, and really trying to create walking paths that make some sense and have some rhyme or reason, rather than just the way that it's been was established in the past. So there is new lighting in that area, new speaker system, and then also some of the upgrades for possibly one concession stand that has the cooking ability, and more importantly, the addition of some significant restrooms in that area as well.
And a playground.
And a playground, yes, bring the playground back.
The old playground.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
which is strategically located next to the horse path, which is strategically located next to two-sided pony barns.
But people see the horses. The LIRR rotunda, I'm presuming that has to do with the walkway?
It does, and that's a placeholder that we've got established while we're working out what's gonna take place with that rotunda. And again, it just didn't wanna be caught with, having to put in a, transition from that second floor elevation to the west end of the building. So we are in discussions with LIRR on what is acceptable for that area, but we had to make sure that we had the capital budgeted for it, so Mr. Town wouldn't.
I could still hear from him probably. The other question that I had is just on the ADW piece down in technology. What are tote terminals? Which
Well,
is,
like in terms of our tow contract, we lease them or we can purchase them. And, at times it makes much more sense to buy them out.
okay.
You avoid the markup, essentially.
Okay. Anyone have questions relative to the capital?
You asked my question about the rotunda.
Sorry.
I guess I had one question. I was looking on the quarterly about the VLT revenue that's coming in that funds the capital plan. It seems like there's more money coming in from that than what is in the capital plan. And I'm just wondering, is that just in case the estimates don't hit? Or?
Because the loan payment, comes out of that VLT stream. So if you net the two and then so what you'll have is you'll have the account. We always go on a rolling 2 years because there's always bleed. So the account will be funded with X, for instance, and then VLT funding for capital come in is Y, less the loan payment net. That would be the incremental capital that would go into the capital.
So once you guys have to start paying the loan back, these numbers are gonna significantly change.
We're
already paying.
Yeah, we're paying it back now.
I was gonna say, we're taking it.
Yep, they're taking it. 23, 28, yep.
There is a reconciliation of capital funds in the capital package, and you'll notice that the VLT forecast is significantly lower because it's already accounted for the loan repayment.
State gets paid first. If I remember the way the documents work.
That's correct.
Victor, you good? Mr. Smith?
Well, let me ask something I had raised in a previous discussion. The next oratory for Saratoga would be considered 2027, 28?
Correct, correct. And with the focus and with what's going on downstate, that we're currently, at Saratoga, we're looking at the restrooms at the top of the stretch, a family restroom, and then some of the smaller historical units that were replaced, that were renovated, but the next dorm wouldn't take place until that time period. And we have one more dorm, and that's at Belmont as well, but the size of the dorms that we're building over there, we're looking at that, assistant trainers, and then see how that plays out, and then the board has been, and Dave, I don't want to speak, very, very focused on the quality of life projects, which, as Dave pointed out, there's no other racetrack in the United States that's doing what NYRA is doing for backstretch housing.
We're gonna go through the quality of life as a separate item as well in the miscellaneous. Chris is trying to find another question. That brings us to consideration of Resolution 2601 then, which is a resolution approving NYRA's capital expense plan for calendar year 2026. I want to specifically mention that, like previous years, the resolution authorizes the board chair to accept and approve requests for amendment to both 2026 capital expense plan and prior approved capital expense plans upon notice to all members, provided that such amendments remain within the approved spending limits and are consistent with the general scope of the approved plans. I'm sure you remember me coming around on occasion to exercise that. Members, do you have any questions relative to the resolution itself?
None.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept Resolution 2601 to approve NYRA's 2026 proposed capital budget?
We'll move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. So the next item on the agenda regards the Village of Floral Park recharge basin. This item is probably best characterized as a historical cleanup. On July 18th, 1989, the New York Racing Association, Inc., not comma Inc., the predecessor to the present NYRA, entered into a lease with the Village of Floral Park, whereby the village was authorized to access certain of NYRA's lands in the northeast corner of Belmont Park for the purposes of operating and maintaining a surface water seepage or sump area. This was intended to assist the village in alleviating stormwater flooding problems that had occurred. Fast forward to 2015, the Franchise Oversight Board approved by resolution the use by the village of other certain lands at Belmont Park by easement for the installation and maintenance of a recharge basin and other drainage areas and the appurtenances thereof. That easement required the village to provide written notice to the Franchise Oversight Board when the recharge basin was operating, and then at such time relinquish all rights, title, and interest to the 1989 sump area. NYRA has also indicated a desire to utilize the 1989 sump area for racing franchise purposes upon its return. The purposes of this proposed resolution is to formally provide that when the village provides us written notice that the recharge basin is operating and relinquishes all right, title, and interest to the 1989 sump area, we will provide written notice to NYRA that the 1989 sump area is now part of the ground lease, enabling their use of the same for racing franchise purposes. Ms. Rial from OGS, Dave Perino, did I lay out this issue properly, or is there anything else that you think I should that should be supplemented or corrected?
Nothing from me.
No, nothing from me. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Glenn, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Could you provide us a very 10,000-foot view as to what NYRA intends in the 1989 sump area?
So that area will just help the area adjacent to Floral Park. As you pointed out, the northeast corner, there's still a couple areas that drain onto the current NYRA property, and this will allow surface runoff to go to that drain, which it has for the last, since 1989. So without having this in place, there would be could be some drainage issues with the work that Floral Park is proposing. And it also helps with our surface runoff around the west and north portion of the asphalt road on the training track.
Okay. Thank you. Members, do you have any questions relative to the resolution? Mr. Seth? Mr. Higgins? May I have a motion to accept resolution number 2602 to permit integration of the Belmont Park sump area into the NYRA ground lease?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries. So I think now we move on to item 6 of the agenda, which is the Belmont Park renovation project. Belmont, practically I think the board would, as we've asked before, a continuity on an overview of the development timeline, which Dave said it remains after, I think you're at 73%, maybe 75% of the timeline, still on target, which is pretty amazing for a very large project. A little bit about the project spending to date. I think we also want to discuss at a very high level minority, women-owned, and service-disabled veteran-owned business utilization. And then I'd like to walk through and at least just put on the record where you guys are on the quality of life projects, which all are starting to conclude, or at least are substantially moving towards conclusion. So if you can give us an overview on what's left and where your spending's going, I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
Sure.
So, the project that we're looking at is, is a 10,000-foot view as to what NYRA intends in the 1989 sump area. And the
So I'll let Rob handle the spending. We'll go over where we are, as far as schedule-wise. We're currently tracking on schedule, and as what Dave pointed out earlier at the start of the meeting, on budget. There's roughly 250 trade personnel on site, roughly 6 days a week. There's been a couple occasions where it's been 7 days a week, anywhere from an 8 to a 10-hour day. All the procurement and contracts are now fully executed. The last was the landscape that was just done a couple weeks ago. Steel superstructure and canopy is complete. The concrete superstructure is also complete. Paddock site work is roughly 40% done. Saddling stalls with the steel work for that is about 75% complete. Waterproofing on the main roof has started. That will take place probably for another month, probably 2 months. Aim is to be watertight, hopefully by, we're looking at early April, mid to early April is what projecting. Purchase of all the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, sprinkler is either on-site or installed. We're currently working with the 2 service providers. We met with National Grid this week to try and come up with a gas location for coming into the property where it doesn't impact UBS operations. So we're looking to go adjacent to the barns along 1 through 4 with the gas main where Banker said that that could be a pretty easy installation. We're working and appreciate the help, a shout out to OGS with the help for PSENG and Gate 5 with getting that primary electric secured for installation. So that's another big hurdle that we're facing in the next month or so. On the building side of it, elevators are 60% complete. First bank will be tested in March. Escalators are all rigged, and the remainder will be installed at the end of March. Interiors for the basement, 60% complete, and the first floor interiors are 40% complete. Funding?
Yeah, as far as funding, so we received our 4th funding request in December. So that brings the total to 340 of the 455 million has been dispersed to NYRA. I would like to thank ESC and OGS because they've been great partners throughout that whole review process. You know, there's been open lines of communication, and it's been super helpful for the schedule and the construction of the new belt mine. The final funding request that's going to be submitted towards the end of this quarter, that would be at an amount of $115 million as the balance of the loan, and $231.7 million has been paid to date out of that 340.
Okay. Before we go a little bit deeper into the quality of life, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me, and I actually meant to raise it in the Capitol, is there's a variety of different actions that are triggered when the Gaming Commission determines substantial completion of Belmont has occurred. There's just a whole host of things that are in law at that point. Have you guys given any consideration as to how you would like the Gaming Commission to consider what substantial completion is and how that interplays with your vacating of the Aqueduct property? Because obviously we also don't want, hey, it's substantially completed. You need to be out by Saturday.
So our anticipation or hope would be once we race at Belmont, a month out from there, Halloween would be a good stop date. I anticipate that's more than we would need, but
yeah, and I think that would be, to your point, when we're out, we're currently securing office space right now, and then we're working with Resorts World as well with some of the areas for storage that they're looking for, so that way we can consolidate some of our operations as well to make this transition when we do leave in June to be able to simulcast during the Saratoga meet. After the Saratoga meet is when operations at Aqueduct, we'd look at this point tentatively to cease, and then the time period from there to be able to reclaim some of the stuff, as we've talked about in the past, some of the off of the racing surfaces, the pump station, stuff that can be used at Saratoga for Oklahoma and some other areas.
So you're stripping the property.
Not serving, but, but yes, I mean, some of the components that have a
Yeah,
useful life.
have utility in a different location, why leave them?
Absolutely.
Glenn doesn't throw anything away, he's a packer.
I've seen some of the John Deeres. Okay, now that, I mean, obviously that's something that's significant, and, we haven't asked you for it on the gaming commission side, but I would anticipate that the gaming commission will ask, how do you define that before they make their determination themselves?
Yeah,
So that might be something you. might wanna think about.
logistically, Aqueduct is our, administrative home
Mhm.
headquarters, so we anticipate moving those folks out late spring, early summer. And that's the big part of it. The rest of it's Glenn trying to squirrel away all the equipment or materials.
Yeah, there's again, safety rail, pump
Yeah, it's
station.
just, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there
Yeah.
that's useful for Saratoga.
The cushion?
Cushion,
Yeah.
pump station, those are the big components. There's $1 million worth of product right there.
And in terms of the artwork and whatnot,
That's already been secured, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember that. So, in context, before I jump into the quality of life, why don't we talk a little bit about minority and women-owned businesses? This is obviously something we've had a couple of different conversations with. It's something that my fellow board members, especially Mr. Higgins, has been very focused on from his appointing authority as well. We get relatively standard updates. It's something that I've been working with most recently with the Office of General Services, taking a look at the materials that Lero Group, who's one of our representative, has been putting forward, and there may be some things that will benefit NYRA in the analysis, in the consideration of that. But from a practical standpoint, can you tell us where you are relative to both women, minority individual, and then service-disabled veterans? Recognizing that you did provide us some material in response to requests, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, so to date combined, we're about 91.4 million, that's been awarded to the M's, the W's, and the service, disabled veterans.
I'm sorry, what was that number?
91.4, that's in total, and that breaks out to about 50 for the MBEs, about 35 for the WBEs, and about 8 million for the SDVOBs. There is one thing to note, and I should say that translates into about 13%, 9%, and 2%. The thing to note is that our carpenter contractor, who has a $20+ million contract, is a WBE certified in New York City. However, they can't get their certification in New York State, and we go through ESD, so they would have to be New York State certified to get any credit. So for all intents and purposes, we will hit the W. It just won't look like that on paper because they can't get their certification due to the size of their organization. They're essentially too big.
Okay.
You said all the contracts have been awarded out to date for the last,
Yes.
so this is essentially it, right? There's no more contracts to award.
Well, there's also, that's all through Tishman. There are some technology upgrades like the DAS system, the Wi-Fi system that are contracted directly through NYRA, and those vendors know that they have to play by the rules too. So they were given the 15, and 6. We're still negotiating some of those contracts, so their utilization plans have not been sent yet. But we do expect to get some additional M, W, and veteran business that way. For example, the Wi-Fi installer is a W, that's $1 million contract. The infield video board is using a veteran organization, that's about an $850,000 contract. So there is more opportunity down the road.
Okay. Putting OGS a little bit on the spot here, I know we had a couple of conversations about it and some thoughts. Who's the best person from NYRA to interact directly with somebody at the Office of General Services?
With Rob
Strace?
please.
Okay. Any additional questions? Yeah, I know that you provided us the outreach program of what Tishman did, and we were always very confident that Tishman, because of their experience with New York State projects, that they would end up doing a good job relative to it, and I think that's reflected in the materials that you provided.
Thank you.
Chris, you have anything of particular concern?
No, the additional materials were helpful.
Great, no, I appreciate the update on that, and your responsiveness in getting to, back on some of the materials that I asked for, is very helpful.
So you had mentioned that the one, entity is not included in these numbers because it's big and not certified yet. Has an analysis been done hypothetically if they were to get certified, how that would impact the numbers?
Right now, we're about $20 million short of the goal at the 9%. Their contract is 22.4. So it would get us right there.
It would get you there. Across all three categories?
That's just for the Ws. The Ms, we're at the 13%. Again, with some of the future opportunities, we feel we're gonna get the 2%. But yes, to answer your question, if we were to include that, we'd probably be right at our goal.
Okay. And then in terms of looking at the finish line, I mean, we could see the finish line now. Where the deficits currently exist in reality, not hypothetically awarded, you know, what's the plan in order to meet the targets? You know, like what do we need, or what's going to be done in order to make sure that those goals are actually met and going forward from here?
Well, I think in reality, we'll be short in a few of the categories. We have all of our good faith documentation being provided right now as these were the goals. So all the emails, the phone calls, the solicitations that went out to all the Ms, the Ws, and the veterans, that's all being compiled right now and will be submitted to ESD and OGS.
It won't be for lack of effort.
Right, right. And that kind of leads into my next question is, okay, so hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back, there was a very extensive, robust effort to do outreach, to, you know, to engage the various communities, but yet we ended up short. So looking back in hindsight, what could have been done, what should have been done, if, you know, if we were to have another Belmont in the future?
No, I'm going to actually interrupt there. It's not even if we have another Belmont. We have 3 commercial casino properties that are being developed in downstate, all with very substantial MWBE and SCDOB goals. And one thing that we do not want is at the conclusion of those projects is to, like you guys are close, is for them to completely miss. So what can we learn from your experience, I think, is where Victor is going.
Exactly.
So, one of the things, and I don't know this, because my intuition would be that over the course of like the last decade or two, these projects are improving as you move forward in time, in terms of folks getting into business, seeing these opportunities being made available will incentivize people to push into this space, because this is really entrepreneurial in the sense that people are forming businesses here, and if they have the opportunity to get contracts like this, and these are big projects. One of them here is too big to actually qualify. So I think what you're seeing on a broad scale is improvement in these initiatives that New York's endeavoring on as you move project by project. So the assumption on these casino projects, they might be slightly better than we are. And it's a factor of time and really.
Yeah, but what specifically could be done for?
Well, not to put you on the spot either. I mean, I think Victor would prefer if you're a little contemplative on that and help. I mean, we have another, obviously the first one that we're looking at is Resorts World, who all articulated very large, above the statutory goals or the theoretical goals of M&B.
Not to speak for the construction team, time. This is a very truncated, this is a quick project. I mean, there's projects in Asia that would be impressed by the speed that this building's gone up.
I'm impressed by the speed.
So I think time is a big factor, socializing this, making sure, so I think time is a key element that would improve any endeavor like that.
Well, we can work with Tish
something
and get you some information on just, what key points we could possibly improve to be able to reach out to a couple of the different scenarios.
Yeah, like that group, specifically the Tishman group, probably could answer this question much more holistically, because they literally have a division for this.
I think we would like to debrief, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, not necessarily from here, but from our appointing authorities, would like to know what can we help with. Not, like I said, for racing projects, but there's a couple other very large projects that are coming in.
Yeah, and because these 3 large projects are going to be in geographical areas that shouldn't be short, and, you know, and WBE entities in order to meet those goals. Where are the takeaways? Where are the learning moments, you know?
Some of it might also be just because, also remember, we're Nassau County. So the jurisdictions that you're looking at for those are all city. So again, that 22 would have hit, the 22 million would have hit. But again, we will regroup with Tishman to be able to find out what, once we can,
And I think it would also be helpful, Rob, if I can impose upon you, in putting, if you could just put a chart together where you're at the 13, the 9, the 2, but that one is not capable of being qualified. If you could put a column in there to illustrate what that spend is, even though it's a New York City qualified, that might give some comfort to the people that we talk to in that industry of going exactly what you said, which is, hey, but for their ability to qualify, they actually are a W business that would have gotten us right to that threshold. And I think that might give some comfort level to our purposes.
Yeah, we
And
did
it would help
come
with
back
that area.
with what Tishman thinks would be, you know, appropriate, but, you know, something that really worked well for us were those events that we held, specifically the Meet the Primes. So some of those MWs and veterans that were too small to undertake the entire scope of work, we hooked them up with the Tier 1 contractors. So now they're a sub of the Tier 1. So those type of interactions actually work really well for our members.
Actually, that's a really good point, because I participated in one of those, and that is, in terms of like these big projects and the scaling required, and, you know, these are massive. These casinos are massive. That right there was feedback that I was getting, is like, almost in terms of their ability to group together to go after bigger fish, for lack of a better term, might improve. When you're talking about projects of these scale.
Okay. Yeah, I think everybody would be interested in what we can glean out of that, so we can tack a little and ensure that the new projects meet or exceed what they've proposed. If we're done with that, let's move on to the quality of life. I don't want to spend too much time on talking about what the projects are, because I think we're all pretty familiar with the overview of the different projects, so that's probably not necessary to replicate. But why don't I just raise the project subject matter, and you can give us a little bit of an update on the status. And the first one is obviously something that we've spoken about, which is dormitories. So I know that you have dorm 3 and 4 have been completed. Dorm, the next dorms.
The assistant trainer dorm is what we're proposing to do now, and that's something that the architects have a design on, and we're looking to get that to OGS within the next couple weeks.
And what would be the time frame on the development of that then?
That would start as soon as a foundation permit is approved, and that would be completed for the Q3 of 26.
Okay.
What about the bike rack?
Done.
Yeah.
All of them then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You jumped down on my list. Some of this we've already covered, but I think it makes sense to bring it up. The backstretch Wi-Fi coverage.
Backstretch Wi-Fi is complete with a camera and fire alarm. What we've now done is expanded some of the, because when I say backstretch Wi-Fi, all the cottages, all the dormitories are complete. Now some of the trainers have asked for some additional Wi-Fi for coverage in their offices or even into the barns for camera systems for private surveillance. So we're looking at that on a case-by-case basis with adding an access point to those areas and having the infrastructure that's available to support that.
Okay, so it would be an expansion of what you had suggested.
Correct.
In other words, we did what we said, and now we're actually looking to do a little bit more.
Exactly.
Health clinic, I understand that you've received your certificate.
Yes, complete.
They have.
They have.
Flooding mitigation.
That's one more step that we're looking to do is a new filtration and controls for, so you'll see that in the last part of the meeting today for MCI controls for a new control panel, Q2 for that.
I did see that, again, we seem to be going back and back to the contract reports.
Yeah.
That was in the contract report as well. Perimeter fencing?
We've got about 800 feet to do along Floral Park, School at PBS, and that will be, complete, end of Q1, early Q2.
Okay. Blue light?
Done. And we also added Saratoga to that for, 26, and that'll be complete prior to the meet.
Before me, okay,
Yes.
great. Mr. O'Rourke mentioned the bike sheds.
Complete.
Gymnasium improvements.
That ties into, the track kitchen and the rec hall upgrade, so we split that project into two areas. The rec hall is about 2 to 3 weeks away from completion, and then we'll flip over to the kitchen. We've been coordinating with, the operator in that area, and actually Monday, they're moving out of the kitchen and going to the, Frenchman's Kitchen or the Morning Line Kitchen. And so operations will take place out of that, so we're able to complete the, ceiling floors, upgrades that are required over in that, and again, that'll be a Q2 completion. That will get the trade focused just because of the operation that's in there. So backstretch workers will not be impacted for, food, and, the operator will provide the same hours of service and operation at the morning line as they have at the main kitchen.
Okay.
Offices, for that area are complete. Flooring in the rec hall area, we're just waiting for the restroom to be complete, and then we can turn that area over, working with OGS for a possible partial in that area.
Okay. That's around the Belmont redevelopment's quality of life. Anybody have any questions about that, or anything else they want to add? Or Naira, you want to add anything that Glenn or I missed? That moves on to, or takes us to Naira's sole source, single source emergency procurements from April through now December. I think we just got in, right, Steve? Through December. I hope you checked your emails last night or this morning. I sent around some of the consolidated materials to you guys. Do any members have it? We've kind of hit upon a bunch of them more than we ever have, I think, at a previous FOB meeting during the narrative portion. Anyone have any questions or concerns with anything that has not been raised? Okay. Moving on to item 7. A little bit of a discussion. This is kind of more of a public notice discussion piece here than it really has to do with anything else. But the only noticed item regards Resorts World New York City's commercial casino license application. As I mentioned, this is really more of a public notice item than for board actions or for NYRA. As we're all aware, the state legislature authorized the consideration of the 3 remaining constitutionally permitted commercial casino licenses. And in furtherance of that authorization, a new gaming facility location board was established, and they issued a request for application initiating the consideration process. Resorts World New York won a previously publicly procurement item to establish and conduct video lottery gaming operations at Aqueduct, and was operating under a state-authorized lease. They, upon the RFA, or actually well before the RFA, they announced that they would be seeking a commercial casino license. Recall on June 13th, 2025, this board approved Resolution 2503, which adopted the Gaming Facility Location Board's request for applications as a competitive process for the proposed real estate development at Aqueduct, and Resolution 2504, which authorized required amendment of their existing restated facilities ground lease to permit the activities that are contemplated, and authorized an extension that's required by statute that would be contingent upon the selection of Resorts World New York City's application. On December 1st of last year, the Gaming Facility Location Board recommended Genting New York LLC, which is doing business as Resorts World New York City, to be considered by the Gaming Commission for a commercial casino license. And several weeks after that, the commission awarded such license to Genting. Subsequently, a facilities ground lease amendment, several years in the making, was finally reached and is presently winding its way through the state's administrative consideration and approval process. And we will ultimately be posting that on the Franchise Oversight Board's website when all approvals have been finalized. It's more just to let everybody know kind of the back end of all the different stuff that we've been doing and a little bit of discussion, a little bit of resolution work to get to that position. I appreciate the efforts of Steve Lowenstein, Michelle and her team at OGS, and Dave especially on the lease aspects of it and negotiating out some of the elements, and what he's doing to help wind that through the administrative process as well. So that concludes today's published agenda. Members, do you have any items that you would like for consideration or presentation that we haven't covered? Hearing none, this meeting of the Franchise Oversight Board is now adjourned. Thank you so much for your participation, and it was good to see you up here in Schenectady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.